Hello, everyone, and welcome to the New Orleans Pelicans Podcast. I'm Gus Kattengell, Mr. Jim Eichenhofer, Pelicans.com, and Andrew Lopez, television sideline reporter, here to discuss, the first full week now of 2026 in Pelicans basketball here. And we start with history, Andrew, that we witnessed in Miami. Trey Murphy, it's not like we didn't think he was going to get there, but he is there, the all-time leader in three-pointers made.
It's kind of funny because I think even when CJ set the record, like you looked at the top five and you were like, "Oh, Trey's gonna get this very soon," and I'm happy for him. I wish it would have come. I think I would have wished it come at home. I think AD said that on the broadcast yesterday. Mm-hmm. I do wish he would have had that moment at home, and obviously I wish it would have come at a win. But it was kind of a surge for Trey after having a slower month of December by his standards in terms of his three-point volume. He was doing a lot of getting to the rim. As James Borrego pointed out last night, he's one of the most efficient players in the league at the rim, I should say, this year. So you can see that part of his game that he has worked on. But just deciding to rip off like 20-plus in 4 games to get the record really quick kind of speaks to just, this guy can still drop 5 or 6 every night if he wants to.
And I'm curious to think about how long can he hold this record? Is it possible that he can stretch this lead out to where he has it for a long time? It's interesting. Drew Holiday broke the record in 2019. CJ broke it in January of 2025. So he didn't even hold the record for a full year from between Trey taking it over. But it does seem like he has the possibility to have some staying power here. If he keeps making 7 threes in a game like he did against Miami, that will help as well. I wanted to point out a couple quick numbers too. Of the guys on the team right now, of active Pelicans that have a chance to add to their career three-pointers, the most, Trey has 696 going into this week. Jose is next at 359.
Jose is 10th, by the way, on the all-time.
Is he really? I
didn't even see that. Jose is 10th on the all-time list.
Yeah. Herb is at 280 and Hawkins is at 244. So, I mean, it doesn't seem like there's a chance that any of these guys are going to approach him. They're not going to take 15 threes a game the way Trey is. Right. So, I mean, could he hold it for more than 5 or 6 years the way that Drew Holiday did?
It's funny because we're kind of talking to Sports Radar and trying to look around at, he's got to be one of the youngest franchise leaders. And I think only Ant probably is in that conversation. Ant, by the way, already over 1,000 threes, which is just kind of mind-boggling. So when you think of it from that play, like if you get a rookie to come in who can put up 200 threes a game with how everybody shoots nowadays and the volume that everybody wants to shoot at, right? It's possible, but again, going back to something AD said on the broadcast last night, I don't want to see 25 in another jersey. I want to see 25 here for the rest of his career. And if 25 is here for the rest of his career, I think that number is going to be really, really, really high. And one more note, just you mentioned CJ McCollum. When we talked to Trey last night in the locker room, he mentioned one of the first text messages that he had on his phone was from CJ McCollum. We kind of joked a little bit that like if he wouldn't have broken it against Miami, like you play CJ in 3 games, like you're going to Washington to play CJ in a few games. Maybe he was going to wait a little while. I mean, he was timing it to just kind of break it when CJ was there, but just kind of speaks to the character of CJ McCollum that this record that he did have for a year. He's one of the first people to congratulate Trey, and Trey talked about how much. CJ had meant to him. What he had taught.
And I think to that point, and one of the reasons probably too is CJ got firsthand chance to see the growth in Trey Murphy. And I bring this up all the time in our podcast with Jim. We would always touch on. It just remembers like yesterday. It's almost like our kids, man, how quickly they grow up. But I remember that first year was here, and then that Vegas summer, right? In summer league, you're like, wow, this guy can drive, and he's shooting a 3, and he's adding a mid-range, and then he's in the 3-point contest and the dunk contest. It's really remarkable, Andrew, if you kind of just take us through his growth from being drafted as a Pelican to in Miami, how much he's added to his game.
He talked about this last night as well, of like 5 years in to be the franchise leader, considering how his season started. I remember there was a lot of time he spent in Birmingham that first year. He was kind of bouncing back and forth, came on strong the end of that season. And But there was a lot of kind of, what's he going to be trying to learn? And I think, but that's Trey's life. That's Trey's basketball life.
He's a late bloomer.
Yeah.
It's been
a late physical bloomer. I mean, this is like when you think of, I think it was he said under-recruited last night and then quickly corrected himself when talking about coming out of high school. And he's like, no, he wasn't. Because you were 6'5", $165 soaking wet maybe. He knew, and then he hits his growth spurt when he gets to Rice. And he's talked about this before. When he got to Virginia after 2 years at Rice, he wasn't supposed to play that year at Virginia. He was going to redshirt.
Yeah.
And then it was, all right, let's, we'll see how it works. And then he got into camp and was just so much better. I'm like, we can't redshirt this guy.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the story of Trey Murphy's career that he has worked on all these aspects of his game. And again, so efficient around the rim this year. A true 3-level scorer can really stretch you out to 30 feet if you need to. I mean, just it really shows the work that and look, we see it every day. How many threes is he shooting after practice, after shoot arounds every single day,
right?
From that 4-point line on the floor. He is working on this and has continued to work on this every single day.
I think it's kind of instructive to think about his rookie season. If you look at the player that he is right now in year 5, and you think about how many struggles he had as a rookie, he comes in extremely confident. It seemed like based on his offseason going into his first year in Summer League, he had every reason to expect to come in and be great, not have any slip-ups, not have any, just hit the ground running. And then, like you said, he ends up in Birmingham. So you fast forward to today and you look at how some of the couple of the rookies that were drafted in the lottery for the Pelicans this year are doing in their first year. And it's impressive because, I mean, there's so many players in the NBA that I think it's more likely, especially unless you're the number 1 pick and you're Cooper Flagg or somebody like that. Even he's had some issues with, not being the player. You're not immediately going to be the star player.
You're not the guy anymore.
Right. But most guys are much more like Trey Murphy than they are Fears and Queen, where right away they're able to handle a big load.
It's just so funny to think of just how, like, the impact that Fears and Queen have made. Like, had a stat last night, and obviously Fears added to it last night about rookies with 15-point games.
Yeah.
And as much as we have talked up DQ in the last month and a half, Jeremiah Fears still has the 3rd most 15-point games. Like, both have a very good case for first-team All-Rookie.
Yeah.
And like you said, that's not the norm.
Right. That's the outlier.
That's the outlier of, you have 2 lottery picks that can come in and do this right away. Instead, usually you're looking at it from, the Trey, and you're looking for, okay, make that guy, take the next develop. Just look at a guy who we just saw in Denny Avdia the other day. He was a lottery pick, top 8 pick.
Yeah.
Things don't work in Washington. Look where he's at in year 6.
Yeah.
25-7-7.
And that's a good point. I mean, sometimes it's another team.
Jalen Duren does it. Like, look, I mean, all these guys who are still drafted, like, you can make that jump late. Just it doesn't mean you're a bad player if you get to your rookie season and you're not living up to what you thought. But I mean, look at what Trey was picked. I mean, like, that's the trajectory which you think for somebody who was picked late teens.
But to your point, I mean, I know, and Jim, you remember this because you have the memory of an elephant, which is amazing, by the way. It helps in our job because I don't remember anything. A storyline seemingly every week, especially last year with the season that the Pels had, was, will Trey Murphy be a starter? Is he a starter? Like, think about that. We're opening our podcast about the three-pointers made leader of franchise history. He wasn't a starter at the start of last season. We didn't know. I mean, we thought he had the talent, but he wasn't a starter. He still had to earn to be a starter.
That was part of the how do you make that lineup work? Where does he go?
Yeah.
I think Trey thought he was a starter.
Yeah,
I think the talent was there, but that was more of a case of you thinking of it. You're like, oh, you have 6 really good players. So do you start small? Do you move Z to the 5 and play Trey? There was a lot there. Oh, how do you play that? And so I thought it's just interesting that he has continued to just fight and fight and fight and fight. There's been other years of his career, I think it was year 2 or 3, where he starts 60 games and he wasn't supposed to be a starter that season. That was because of injuries. So he has kind of fought to kind of claim the space, and that's why I was very happy that he was rewarded with the contract he he was. Truly, like you could say, he earned that, and from where he was coming, just again,
I don't know.
It's another reason why I never want to see 25 in another jersey.
You look at this roster, it'd be hard to argue. He's your best 3-point shooter. He's the best player above the rim. He's the most dynamic guy like that, size wise and everything. And he's young, so it's hard to argue with it. But we're talking about starters, and Jim and Andrew, I got to ask you about it. Herb Jones. I mean, it's nuts. We all know his importance.
Yeah.
But are you even surprised by how important he is to this team, especially on the defensive end?
I'm going to go back to Trey Murphy here. When Herb came back in December, Trey made a comment of, like, you don't realize how much you miss Herb until Herb's not there. Mm-hmm. There's so many things, and it's hard in basketball to think that one guy makes such a defensive impact. Mm-hmm. But that's Herb Jones, and it's not just because he can take the opposing team's best player. So it's not just, okay, he can take out the number one and do. It's, again, as Borrego has talked about before, look at how many fires he puts out. He's all over the place. He's doing this. He's stopping this. He's talking. He raises the floor of everybody on the floor. And that, I think, is what you're missing the most right now.
You know, you use the phrase, he's putting out fires. He's kind of closing gaps and stuff like that. I mean, to me, that's one of the biggest problems that you see is that even when he was playing, the defense is always trying to cover for guys. Mm-hmm. And I've heard coaches say for a long time, I mean, this is true in the NBA more than it is in every other level of basketball, that you can't help defense your way to a good defense. I mean, you have to be able to stop the ball. You have to keep the penetration from happening, because it just feels like there's a domino effect. Mm-hmm. And it's definitely a much worse problem when he's not on the court, because now you talked about how now he's not there to take the main guys. So those main guys are having a field day, and now you're trying to figure out, there's been a few games where the Pelicans have had to say, we're going to run a double at somebody at half court. We're going to try to take the ball out of their hands. But now the problem is that the other guys are open, and you have to pick your poison. You have to say either, just to pick out a name of a guy they're going to play on Tuesday, either Luka's going to kill us, or we're going to have to give up some open 3-pointers and hope that guys miss. Yeah. So I think that's one of the things that we've seen that's been obvious, is just the difficulty of when he's not on the court. It's just the problems that they've had trying to defend are just even more of a challenge.
Yeah, and I think, and look, Bryce McGowan has done a great job for being able to step in, but you still, even in this last stretch where he's missed games with the ankle, you've had slower games from your stars, because I think that has been a strategy for most of the year, mm-hmm. in terms of we're gonna make X beat us, we're gonna make Y beat us. Like, you're not gonna beat us all-star. Yeah. It's going to be role player over here. Right. Mm-hmm. Problem is the role players have hit a lot of shots this year.
Moses Moody being one example.
That was You tie your career high for threes in the first quarter. It's probably not something anybody expected. Right. But I was just saying he just raises the floor of everybody, and I think when he is back on the floor, which I think will be very soon, mm-hmm. It's going to be very nice to have him back out there.
And Jim kind of mentioned trying to help out on the defensive end, trying to help out on the offensive end when you have some injuries, and just trying to get some continuity going. I know Jeremiah Fears talked about that. It's kind of hard to kind of get that. Let's take a look at some of the lineups we've seen the last couple of weeks that Coach Borrego is trying to make work here, from hockey lineup changes to, you're missing some bodies. What do you think of what he's trying to do?
He's one thing I love about what he's doing right now is he's trying everything. Defensive rebounding hasn't been great. You had the 3-game stretch where you gave up 52 offensive rebounds, 41% of the offensive rebounds over 3 games. So what do you do the next 2? Next 3, I'm playing Loon and Eve at the same time. I'm playing Carlo and Eve and Carlo and Loon. And you're really kind of stacking your bigs. Mm-hmm. Kevon Looney came in with some great rebounding efforts. Yeah. And then you looked at it in the game against Miami. You're trying to counter Kel'el Ware and Bam Adebayo as a big lineup. You go back to having Zion start at the 3, which is something we saw a little bit at the end of last year. Mm-hmm. So I think a lot of it is let's try and figure out what's the best combination. And as he's not afraid to try anything. And I think he's still trying to figure out the best combos. You saw some things that worked in the 5-game win streak. You're trying to get back to that. So until you start winning games at that clip again, I think everything's on the table. And I like that he's not trying to tie himself to, this has to be it. And we're gonna try everything we can.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times it's about trade-offs. I think that's one thing that is important for people to understand, or fans to understand, is that you're going to give up something somewhere to get something somewhere else. So, I mean, to me, it was interesting. The Miami game, like you said, he's matching up against big guys, but they're playing so fast that was one thing that I was concerned about going into the game is, can the big guys run and stay with the pace of that game? And I mean, I think for 2.5 quarters, they did a good job of doing that, but eventually the Heat kind of wore them down. But I mean, it really is interesting to see some of the different wrinkles that he's thrown out there with the lineups. And obviously they found something when they had the 5-game winning streak, but Herb was playing. And so you pull Herb out of the lineup and the defense is worse. And to me, the offense at this point, the offense is too frequently having to play at a level that's so high to be able to win games. That's one of the biggest problems, is that you can't go into a stretch of games where you say we have to score 125 points to win. Right. That's one of the first things that they have to tackle. It's
the math equation. It's the math equation that JB has talked about all year. Pelicans are not going to be a team to make 15 to 23s on a night-to-night basis. Right. So you have to have a low turnover game. You have to win the offensive boards. You have to have 10 to 12 extra field goal attempts because of the offensive boards, because of stops, because of turnovers. Those were things you were doing. And all of that kind of has been missing lately in these last few.
Right. So as we turn to the new calendar year in the month of January, 16 total games, only 6 are at home, Andrew. 1 is coming up this week. Obviously, as we get ready to record this, it is the Lakers, as you're wearing the City Edition. That's what we'll be wearing there as well. Not many, but is that the home game you're looking forward to in this stretch this month?
I think so. Because one of the things that you've noticed, you go back to, there was a couple of games on that 5-game win streak, which I believe 4 were at home. Mm-hmm. 2 of them, I think, if they were on the road, the Pelicans do not win those games. Mm. And as much as whenever you have a Laker game or a Warriors game with a lot of outside fans coming in, even in that Knicks game, I think we saw it, the energy level in the blender rises.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And those are games are going to be great games. It's not one of the, you don't want to let the Lakers get going. There is going to be some fans there, but usually you hear that met with, there was a Go Knicks Go chant.
Yeah.
That was very quickly drowned out, and it raised, just raising the level a little bit, I think is, it makes for exciting atmospheres. And look, at this point, anytime you get to see LeBron James do what he's doing in year 23, how many more of these are we going to have left?
Sure.
So let's enjoy them while we can.
Well, as we start the work week, Jim loves to do, little awards, a little player of the week, player to watch, and some trending numbers with some of the games we're going to watch this week. So let's get to it. Jim, who wins this week's player of the week award?
He's won it a few weeks in a row. I'm going to go with Zion Williamson. He averaged 27.5 points. He had a little bit of a quiet game against Miami, but the 3 games before that, he had 30+ in every game. He shot 62% from the field. Shot 76% on free throws, which I know people are really happy with. Averaged 6.3 rebounds. And again, similar to the free throw thing, people are happy about this. He was one of only 6 players that played in every game. So we're seeing him on the court on a consistent basis. Yeah.
The thing with Z is it's remarkable to me the amount of shots that he has taken in the paint in the last 2 games and the amount of free throws he has at the same time. I don't want to go full Graph. I don't want to go full Joel right now.
He did have
You shot 46 times in the paint last night, and you had 8 free throws. How many? That's tough.
How many do you have against Miami?
I believe it was 0.
0.
I believe it was 0.
And moving on to the
when this one gets sent to the league office, we're gonna that part might not make it.
Moving on.
We'll cut that part out.
Remarkable. You go quarters without free throws. Quarters entire. Okay. Anyway, Jim, player to watch.
The player to watch. Let's keep it positive, guys. Jeremiah Fears is the player to watch, and I think the reason I list him is because he had a recent stretch where he was a little bit quieter. It felt a little bit like maybe he was approaching the rookie wall. I don't think he was hitting it, but he was kind of walking towards it. And then these last couple games to start the month of January, he's played really well. So the last 2 games of December, which were against the Knicks and Chicago, he was 4 for 13 from the field combined, averaged 4.5 points. The 2 games in January so far, Portland, Miami, he's 16 for 28 from the field and averaged 19.5 points over those 2 games. And also I'm going to get into this in a second too. I think there's a bunch of good backcourts on the schedule in week 12, some really big challenges that he's going to face, whether it's really good defensive players he's going against or really good offensive players that he might spend some time defending. So Jeremiah Fears, player to watch over the next 7 days.
I liked that he was able to bounce back from Chicago. Remember the first time in Chicago, he's playing back home for the first time.
Yeah.
One of his better games.
He was great. Yep.
Of the season. I think there was a little bit of pressure on him last time. He's still trying to figure out a couple of different things. Like to see him kind of getting back to that in these last 2. And, well, again, what we saw in Miami, starting to hit the 3 a little bit more. This was somebody who, for at one point in the season, was hitting 38%.
Yeah.
Took a dip in December, starting to see that kind of climb back up.
I was
like
that
that
real
confidence.
quickly. What's a good number for him per game that you like? 2 threes, 3 threes?
I would like to see him shooting 4 to 5. If he's going to shoot it at that 36 or 37. But again, that was his thing. Got to see where that number is. But mostly, I think I would just want to see him be comfortable on the floor.
All right, bring it home, sir. Some trending numbers for the next couple of days.
All right, so over the next 7 days, they play the Lakers, Atlanta, Washington, and Orlando. Let's start. And by the way, too, I'm going to point out for each of these, almost all these teams, there's a significant former Pelican on the so it's kind of like reunion week. So
I like it. Let's just call this a reunion week.
Yeah.
I like that.
Starting out with the Lakers, Jackson Hayes and DeAndre Jordan is a former Laker, so you have that as well. The trending number for them is 117.6, which is their defensive rating. They're 24th in the league in defense. So I think, we talked about the Pelicans defense earlier. They're 27th in the league in defense. So Lakers are only slightly better than New Orleans is. Can the Pelicans take advantage of the fact that that's been a weakness of the Lakers, that even though they have a really good record, they actually have a negative net rating this season.
Yes.
So statistically, they haven't been that good.
It's kind of crazy. To think, just to think about, and it's just kind of worth it just to hear JJ have a little bit of a meltdown in some of these post games.
We were following.
He is very frustrated with these things, and it's some of the best post game stuff you get from a coach. He's just very raw with how he talks about things.
Maybe that should be one of the goals. Is can at the end of the night, can you get a JJ?
Can you have a frustrated
meltdown?
JJ?
Right,
I like that.
Right.
I like that.
We love you, JJ.
Atlanta.
Moving on, Atlanta, the number I have for them is 2-8, and that is their record in their last 10 games. They're also only 4-12 in their last 16. The Pelicans are 3-7 in their last 10, 5-11 since December 1st, same span that the Hawks have been 4-12. So even though obviously New Orleans has struggled lately, they've actually played better than the Hawks. The Hawks have had some real struggles over the last few weeks, and so when the Pelicans played them earlier in the season, it felt like Atlanta was in a good place, and the Hawks won that game by a big margin. But can the Pelicans take advantage maybe now of them being a little bit more vulnerable? Yeah,
I think a little bit more vulnerable, a little bit more banged up than what they were, trying to figure out a couple of different things over there. But I'd like that a lot better if it wasn't a losing hour back-to-back.
Yeah, there you go.
Losing hour back-to-back.
And by the way,
I've hit my quota of now saying it the amount of times I was supposed to in this show.
Was going to mention, too, Sadiq Bey playing against Atlanta.
Yes.
Which, obviously, that was the last time that he was on the court prior to coming here. And then the Hawks have Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Dyson Daniels. So, speaking of former players as well, as we turn to Washington, C.J. McCollum is a member of the Wizards. Jordan Poole came to the Pelicans from Washington, so there's that element to it.
As technically as did Sadiq Bey.
Yes, true.
Just who did not play
a game. Play there, yeah. The trending number for the Wizards, though, is 7, and that is they're 7th in points from rookies this season, which to me is a little surprising because you think of them as a rebuilding team, and they actually are number 1 in second-year players. So that's really the group.
The second-year players are hurt.
They have like 6 first-round picks from last year. So the Pelicans are second in points from rookies this season. A couple teams that maybe Memphis, for example, Memphis is 5th in rookie points, which maybe you didn't expect as a team that is competitive and is in the playoff hunt or the play-in hunt.
It's a lot of Cedric Howard.
So I thought that was interesting that Washington, it's really Trey Johnson among their rookies. Yeah. And but the Pelicans have had relied more on rookies than Washington, which you wouldn't necessarily expect coming into the season. And then lastly, Orlando, the best I could do for former Pelicans player is Jamal Cain is on the Magic this season. And I couldn't think of anyone from the Pelicans that played there that has been with the Magic. But anyways, the trending number for them, for the Magic, is 13, and that is their rank in offensive efficiency. This stat is incredible. They haven't finished in the top 15 of the NBA in offense since 2012. Wow. So it's been that long since they were even above average offense in the NBA. So interesting
if you would have guessed me to think, I was like last year, I was like with Franz and Paulo getting into the top. I would have.
Yeah.
No, I think they were. Even
I know they were an elite defensive team last year. They were an elite defensive team. A lot of Jalen Suggs, obviously. That would have. You'd have stumped me on that one if you'd have made me guess the last year they were in the top 15.
Sounds like a game show we're going to have here. Eichenhofer stumps. I mean, he really does. We do that and bring it into the radio broadcast a lot.
Little stump to Schwab.
I love that, man. We're really good with that. But anyways, you can tell the month of January is off and running, and we have a handful of games that we're going to be interested in looking at and talking about. As always, appreciate your time, Andrew.
Yeah, we're going to get a lot of use out of these suitcases in the month of January.
That is very true.
So a lot of road
And as always, Jim, thank you for all the knowledge, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Gus.
All right, and thank you as always for tuning us in. You've been watching the New Orleans Pelicans podcast.